You okay?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rise Above Justice Movement, the podcast. My name is Zachary Mallory, and I am the founder and the host of the Rise Above Justice Movement and the Rise Above Justice Movement, the podcast. All right, so we are back with a special edition of our candidate series. And I say special because this one means a lot to me. It means a lot to my co-founder and co-host, Gwen. And we'll bring in Jerry in just a moment. But Gwen, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you for
It's
having
like
me.
it's like we just did this.
It's like we just did this. I know. Happy to be here as always.
Absolutely. Do you have a couple words that you would like to say about today's guest? Because
Absolutely.
it's personal.
It is personal. So I live here in Tennessee. I've been here 8 years, and I love when I see badass women running for office. And I had the pleasure of, briefly interviewing this guest on May 7th, which was a historic day here in Tennessee. And we're going to talk about that. But I am thrilled to announce our guest is Jerri Green, who is running for the governor of Tennessee. How are you doing today, Jerry?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me, y'all.
Yeah, you've been really busy, so we're just really happy to have you here. And yeah, Zachary, did you have anything you wanted to start us off with with Jerry?
I have to agree with the sentiment of badass women running for office, and Jerry fits that to the absolute T. And I say that as somebody who grew up in Missouri. I'm no stranger to whenever it comes to gerrymandering. I am no stranger to whenever it comes to gerrymandering at all. And the way that Jerry Green is pushing back against this, I think is deeply inspiring. And I guess let's start. Jerry, first of all, welcome to the podcast. And
Thank you.
it is a deep honor. I have my own governor election this year here in the beautiful state of Kansas. You remind me a lot of the candidate that I'll be voting for and I'll be supporting. And I'm so excited. But walk us through who you are and why you're running for governor of Tennessee.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. I am a native Memphian, born and raised here. And I should say that from the start, as we start talking about redistricting, I am damn proud to be from Memphis, and my city is under attack. But I went to college in Knoxville.
Mm.
I went to law school at Georgetown in DC. I came back to start my career in Nashville. While the rest of my friends were going to big corporate law firms, I became a juvenile public defender to defend the Constitution and defend the most voiceless in our system. So I've lived in all three grand divisions of the state. I am now back in Memphis. I've been back here for many years now. I am on the city council here. When I got elected, I'm the first Democrat to ever hold this seat, and we elected our first ever female majority in the 200-year history of Memphis that year. And that's my part-time job, allegedly. My full-time job is I am currently the chief public defender here in Shelby County, the largest public defender's office in the state, the second oldest on this side of the Mississippi, and I think the best, but I might be biased. I just got this role when the mayor asked me to lead in January. Before that, I had been serving as his deputy chief of staff for the last half decade. So, doing lots of different kinds of policy work on big issues around our county. And that's my day job. But my most important job, and the reason why I'm running, is the title I hold most dear is that of mom. I have special interests. Their names are Bo, Vivian, and Wilder. They are 8, 14, and 16. And they kind of are my North Star for everything I do. I care about the environment because I'm leaving this earth to them. I care about women's rights because my daughter now has less than her grandmother had. I care about public education because my youngest is autistic and in a public school. So, all of those things that I care about are driving me are because of them. My mom and I grew up here in Memphis, very poor. She was telling me recently that, her first job here in Memphis, she made $11,000 when I was about 4 years old. And, you know, we had to really struggle. And so when I'm traveling across the state, we've made over 100 stops, and people are talking about the struggles, whether it's paying rent, buying groceries, paying utilities, medical cost. All of that's very familiar to me. All of that is very much a part of my upbringing. My parents were from a small town in Arkansas. My dad stayed there. He died on a work site because there wasn't a hospital within 200 miles. So I understand the importance of rural health care. Anyway, all of it just goes back to the people that I love, this place, this state that I call home, and trying to fight to make sure that it's better days are ahead of it.
I love that you talk about, what shaped you, and it just sounds like the experiences you've had have really, driven you to, want to do this work and, fight back in your own way. You mentioned coming out of law school and working, did you say in juvenile detention centers? Is that what you
A
said?
juvenile public defender.
Juvenile
Yep.
public defender, excuse me. And what if you can share some experiences you had just working in that field, like that kind of, it's pushing you towards running and obviously your activism.
Well, you know, I saw a lot of things. I still do as the chief public defender, a lot of injustices, a lot of inequality when I was in the court system. Obviously, we disproportionately lock up minorities in our country. But I'll tell you a case that probably planted a seed that I didn't even understand at the time was doing that for me to eventually get into policy work, into politics. I had a client who was about 12 years old. He had a little brother who was two. And when I met my client, he was in an orange jumpsuit in shackles, charged with two felonies. And I went to ask him what had happened. And he told me that 2 year little brother had been sick and his mom had missed so much work that their utilities had been cut off. It was December, it was cold. So she kept big brother home from school to watch little brother while she went to work. He took an extension cord out his window, and they lived in like a quadplex kind of situation, and plugged it in through his neighbor's window, and then put it with a space heater and a TV and set his sick little brother in front of it. The police were called. Of course, then you know you're like, what neighbor would do this? Well, a neighbor that finds two kids sitting in the dark and the cold. That's who would do this. And then what police officer would lock them up, right? I'm sure that he knew that the young one was going to go to DCS custody, and he thought maybe he could keep the other one out. But my client was charged with felony theft and aggravated burglary. And I knew at that moment, as a baby attorney, that the system wasn't there to help anybody. And there was no way I could solve their problems. The mom needed better health insurance, better child care, utility assistance, you know, and we were failing her. We were failing the little brother who was now going to be in DCS. And we certainly failed big brother because one night in juvenile detention makes you more likely to end up in adult jail. So that probably, you know, summarizes a lot of my experiences there. There were a lot of kids that had every challenge, every trauma that you can imagine. Um, and it just felt like a really hard place to be, but a hopeful place because you could fight for a better future for them. And I'll tell you this, I never lost a case. So it was very
Heck yeah.
formative in my work. And what I do now. Still just fighting for people. You know, that's the essence of what I've done my whole career.
We need candidates like you who have that experience and know what's at stake for the working class, for the poor who need our help. And, Tennessee, obviously we have so many things to address, so many issues. And I think that, I read something where like I think we're ranked 50th in, overall quality of life. And
Mm,
that just came out this year. And you mentioned, we're talking about what's happening with children here. And, part of your platform, as you mentioned, is reproductive rights, reproductive justice. And, the whole pro-life movement has allowed, Tennessee to also be one of the last states when it comes to not just childcare, but also what's happening with DCS.
mm,
And how kids are sleeping on the floor. And then now, Zachary and I we had posted something for Rise Above Justice Movement about this, that children, there's just no space. There's so many children that are in
Hmm.
this foster system that they're being sent to juvenile detention centers. I don't know if you'd heard that
Terrible.
already.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's terrible.
it's horrible.
It's traumatic. There's so many ways we fail children in this state, and their basic needs. So, like you're talking about foster kids who've done absolutely nothing wrong except for
Yeah.
be neglected by their families, and they're ending up in jails, kitty jails. We are 51st in public education funding. Bill Lee refused to provide kids food for summer through the EBT program. They had to have that overridden by Republican lawmakers, and that affected 154,000 kids in my county alone, in Shelby County alone. So, yeah, we continue to fail kids and fail mothers, and we do it from the start of birth. I mean, we are number two in the nation in rural hospital closures. Most of our rural hospitals don't have an OBGYN at them. We continue to put in asinine laws around what doctors can do and prescribe and help women, because of our incredibly strict abortion bans. And I tell people this all the time. I have three kids. I also had one miscarriage. And for anybody who doesn't know, an abortion and a miscarriage, the DNC, they're charted exactly the same way on a medical chart. So when
Yeah.
doctors are having to make decisions about a woman who has miscarried and whether she can continue to have a something in her body that will cause her to go into sepsis shock, they're having to make that decision based on something that was written in the Tennessee legislature by a bunch of MAGA Republicans. So there's so many ways that we fail kids and families and women in this state over and over and over again. And I think it would be really helpful to have a woman and a mom, with progressive values in the governor's office to actually address these issues.
Yeah, we wholeheartedly agree. And, there's amazing candidates running like yourself who, women that, Dr. Laura Andreessen, who's an OBGYN, who talks about our rural healthcare crisis and, rural healthcare deserts, and like you just
Mm.
said, what was the percentage or the number? We're second for that to not
Second,
have,
and rural hospital closures around the
yeah,
country. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we don't take the Medicaid expansion money, which is, your tax dollars and my tax dollars that we send to the federal government and then don't take back because it was Obamacare and they were racist and didn't want to take Obama's money. But that
Hmm.
has led to all of the hospital closures around our state. And if we just accepted that money, we would have more rural hospitals be able to function, thrive, and reopen. If we could do something as simple as an executive order from the governor saying, doctors, you are free to practice medicine and we are not going to sue you, then we would actually be able to recruit and retain more OBGYNs in these rural areas. But in the meantime, we're going to have to think outside the box. So we're going to have to do things like I started a Black midwife program here when the Dobbs decision came down. And I knew that, we lead the nation here in Memphis in fetal and maternal mortality rates, and it is worse for Black women than for white women. So I funded two Black midwife fellows to specifically target that audience. And for $180,000, we had 89 healthy births our first year and 112 our second year. We need to take that program on the road and put it
wow,
in rural areas as well.
absolutely. I mean, and as you said, women of color, are disproportionately affected and live in areas where abortion bans are the most prevalent, and unfortunately it's a really horrifying reality, and we continue to leave people of color behind more and more. I kind of want to ask you, when you're governor, there's so many things that, will be on your desk, the first day. What are some of the top issues that, you would like to see addressed starting from day one when you're elected?
Well, we actually have a day one plan on my website, greenforgovernor.com. Um, we assume that we will have a supermajority still in the state house and the state senate because of how gerrymandered our state is, but that doesn't mean we're powerless. So we'll start with appointments. I like to say I would appoint an AG that's read the Constitution, somebody in charge of the Department of Health that actually believes in science, and someone in the Department of Education that's been inside a classroom. Then we will issue executive orders. Again, we'll declare a state emergency around maternal and fetal mortality rates. We will tell doctors they can practice medicine. We'll end our MOUs with Core Civic, and we will let Ballard know that we're not going to let them continue to be a monopoly that is hurting people in East Tennessee. And we'll end all of our agreements with ICE and tell them to get the hell out of our cities. Those are
Wow.
some of the things on day one that we'll
Mm.
tackle, but we're also going to start spending down our TANF funds. So that's Tennessee Assistance for Needy Families. That's federal dollars that come with some strings attached back to Tennessee for people living in poverty. And the things that we want to do with those TANF funds, I'll give you one example, are basically to help people. Um, the other states, I'm not making this up, I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. They partner with nonprofits who buy up medical debt for pennies on the dollar. So we can
Mm.
take 10 millions of the hundreds of millions that we sit on in TANF funds. By the way, TANF is separate than the $2 billion rainy day fund we also have.
Oh,
But
yes.
just the TANF funds, we can take 10 million and we can turn that into $1 billion of medical debt erased for Tennesseans. That should alleviate and completely erase medical debt for over 100,000 Tennessee families. Those same dollars can be used to clear our child care voucher waiting list, our housing voucher waiting list, and we would get to work on that right away because those are immediate needs.
Why do you think the Tennessee legislature we have and have had for, I think it's been what, 8+ years, the supermajority doesn't address these issues right now?
Because they don't have to. They
Mm.
have gerrymandered the maps to where they are picking their voters instead of their voters picking them, and they feel safe. Um, I'll give like the one thing that I think is a real pressure point for them is the vouchers, right? In a lot of these rural areas, there's just one school. I was up in Washburn, Tennessee, this past weekend. They have one school that is pre-K through 12, not just like one high school. They have one school. They also only have an X-ray machine at the veterinarian, by the way.
Ugh.
Um, but those voucher programs, when you start taking money out of that to provide choice, I put that in quotation marks,
Mm.
then all you're doing is defunding probably their largest employer and their children's future. And this is a school that they all went to, their parents went to, their kids, their grandkids, everybody goes to, right? And so it's deeply unpopular in a lot of red rural counties. They like their public school. They're one school. Everybody's like, we're the Pirates and we're purple and gold, or, we're the whatevers and we're these colors. Everybody has a real pride around it. But because there is a supermajority and the governor, the speaker of the House, and others are bought and paid for by voucher schemers, then they push down this unpopular legislation and the Republicans fall in line because they'll say, I'm voting for the Republican budget. I'm voting for what Speaker Sexton and what Governor Lee want. And there's no pushback, right? There's nobody to shine a spotlight on what the problems are and how their votes themselves are problematic. So when I propose a budget and it defunds the voucher program, puts all of that money back in public schools, if they want to override it, then they're going to have to whip the votes. And when they
Mm.
go to whip those votes, people are not going to want to do it either because they'll be held accountable when they go to their local restaurant in town, or they'll be held accountable at the ballot box the next time because it's much more transparent. So I think that's a lot of the reason that the leadership is bought and paid for by the NRA, by Core Civic, by Big Pharma, you name it.
Yeah.
That's why we continue to see the laws we have.
Do you find in your travels around Tennessee and being a Tennessean yourself that most Tennesseans want change?
Absolutely. So I was in Williamson County after I got down off the mountain in Washburn, and we had 500 people. That's Marsha Blackburn's hometown. 500
That's
people
right.
came out
That's
to a
right.
picnic in the middle of the day on a Sunday. And I just think it speaks volumes. I also hardly ever go anywhere where I don't have somebody say, I've never voted for a Democrat, but I'm voting for you.
Wow.
Or I had some guy, he showed up to one of my things in Kingsport and he was like, I was MAGA till last week. And I was like, whoo, buddy, this must be a sharp turn for you. Um, but he was really upset about the Epstein files. And I was like, me
Wow.
too, man. Me too. Because I think victims should be seen and heard, and the lack of decency of Pam Bondi to even turn around and look the victims in the eyes is disgusting to me as a woman, as a parent. I'm just sick of it too. And so we have people like that coming around our side all the time. But the truth of the matter is, they've been in control of the House, the Senate, and the governor's office for decades. And so
That's
all
right.
you have to do is ask people, is your life better? Is your gas cheaper? Are your groceries cheaper? Is your rent lower? Are your wages higher? Are there more job opportunities? Are your schools better? The answer to all that is no. Like you cited a stat earlier about where we fell, but I'll tell you, last year we were named the
Yeah.
most miserable state in the country.
Yeah. No, the lasting quality of life. Yeah. And
Yeah.
happiness.
So
Yeah.
we're the most
Exactly.
miserable state in the country. So like, yeah, I think people don't want to live that way, and they do love Tennessee, and I do too. It is a beautiful state full of
It is
amazing,
beautiful. Yeah.
wonderful people, and so they don't want to leave. They just want some change in leadership that's actually listening to them.
And I think that's like some of the saddest comments I see are from people who obviously, I'm from Northern Virginia, so right outside of Washington, D.C. And not that Virginia doesn't have its own problems, but from where I came from, a lot of things were pretty much very progressive, and I would say, people were taken care of. Of course, I grew up there and I left in 2017, so I haven't been back, and um, but, I think a lot of the comments we see are, well, people in Tennessee keep voting for this. They keep voting for this. But, as I keep hearing from candidates that we've talked to in Tennessee, it's Tennessee isn't a red state, it's a non-voting state. But, if people are unhappy, like, do they just feel like their vote doesn't matter when you end up talking to people? Or, because as you're
I
saying,
think they have in the past. And again, that goes back to a lot of the gerrymandering and
yeah,
understand the other side. Like part of the suppression is for you to feel hopeless. So if you keep going to the ballot box for school board, for state rep, whatever, for these lower seats, and they're so gerrymandered that there's no way, without a huge shift in population, that a Democrat would win. Well, then it feels like, why bother go voting? And if people aren't voting for Democrats, then people say, why bother running? And then it just becomes a self perpetuating prophecy, right?
yeah,
Because then if you pull a Democratic ballot, there's nobody on it. But I want to give everybody hope. So on the same week that we redistrict Memphis and carved it up, that same week in Tennessee, we had our May primary. And we dug deep into those numbers. Of course, that's important to us as candidates because I believe a vision without data is just a hallucination. And we wanted to see deeply what the real comparison is and where the movement is. We've been looking at our race versus 2018
yeah,
because that's the last time there were two non-incumbents running for governor, and it's the last time that it was a Trump midterm. And what we
right.
saw was in tiny towns, we saw not just like 60% or 70%, we saw sometimes 1000% increase in Democratic turnout. In
Wow.
suburbs around like Nashville, all the way around Nashville, we call it the donut. All of those suburbs, we needed to move by, margins, but we saw 98%, 200%, 600%. Memphis in Shelby County, we had our highest voter turnout since 2002. We saw a 66% increase by Democrats and 120% decrease by Republicans. In
Yeah.
Chattanooga, in Hamilton County's actually been red for 3 decades. Chattanooga's been a blue dot in a red county. This year, more Democrats pulled ballots than Republicans. So the shift, the movement is there, not just across the country, like
Yeah.
what you saw last night in
In
Georgia,
Georgia, I was gonna say, yeah.
Alabama.
Yeah.
All of that is happening here in Tennessee too. And I think it's just, the pendulum swings. People are sick of it. And so they're like, I'm going to go out. I mean, I've had multiple people tell me, I'm in Smithville. There's no Democrats on my ballot, but I pulled one just to say I'm not voting for any Republicans.
Yeah. Wow.
And that makes a difference.
It does. And, you're up against, it's Marsha Blackburn and is it John Rose? Are those your two
Well,
opponents?
I mean, I have primary opponents. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
overlook them.
Okay.
I think we're the most serious campaign in the race. The Democrat Party is a big tent. So,
Yeah,
for
I mean,
example,
you're
I have a
you're really the
steel
only
music
person.
guitarist from Nashville in my primary, but
Oh, oh my gosh, what's his name? Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Um, but on the other side, it is Marsha Blackburn, John Rose, and there's one other person who's a state rep, Monty Fritz, who proposed this year that women who take the
Death
abortion
penalty,
pill
yeah.
get the death penalty. He also believes in the death penalty for people who help their transgender kids. Um, so he's like, everybody keeps kind
Yeah.
of posting him as a moderate because he doesn't like vouchers. I'm like, but he's not,
It's like
that's
the
not a,
farthest from a moderate.
it's
So
not moderate. Vouchers are
extreme.
just awful. like,
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
horrible.
but and John Rose too is not a moderate. He's voted with Trump more than Marsha Blackburn, but Marsha Blackburn, I like to say, is bootlicker in chief. Like,
Yeah.
if we've been worried about Bill Lee being a doormat, Marsha Blackburn's gonna throw Trump a 10 tank
Yeah.
parade. Um,
Yeah.
so
As Taylor Swift said, she's Trump in a wig, and it's so true.
we
She's
have shirts on
obsessed.
our website that say that. I have an artist that
Awesome.
drew a picture of Marsha with perhaps a bird in her hair. Um, that have
It's
that quote from
amazing.
Taylor on it. Yeah.
That's
Get yours
amazing.
today.
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to hear also like, in this race being up against, I would say, would you say Marsha Blackburn's like the
Oh
biggest?
yeah. I
Yeah.
and Marcia thinks that I'm the one that she's going to be running against. She keeps calling me out on social media,
See,
which is
look at
actually
you.
very
You're bothering
interesting.
her.
Well, thanks for the press, Marcia. It's always funny when she's like, "My opponent thinks like we should abolish ICE," and everybody's like, "Thank you."
That's good.
Sh
She's
you
scared of you. That's good.
you had me at your opponent. Well, in her 30-year political career, she's never mentioned another opponent by name.
And she's mentioned your name, huh?
Multiple times.
Wow. See, you're living rent free in her head. We love to hear it.
I was just about to say living rent free is probably the best thing. And I live rent free in the NRA's head because I talk about gun violence literally religiously, not only as a survivor, but two of my best friends were shot and killed, one in 2019 and one in 2023. And speaking of like gun violence,
Yeah.
Tennessee is no stranger to whenever it comes to gun violence. And we learned of the devastating shooting that happened at the Covenant School in Nashville. So, whenever it comes to addressing gun violence as a public health crisis, because that's exactly what it is, and it needs to be
Hmm.
addressed as such, whenever we recognize that we are failing our future generations by allowing them to grow up around school shooter drills, oftentimes those drills turn into actual tragedy.
Hmm.
And thinking about that and addressing gun violence, what do you propose? And I know you have a very robust platform, and it's hard to kind of like pinpoint something that's not already like very heavily laid out, which I appreciate because it helps my ADHD ass figure out what the best thing is to ask. But whenever it comes to gun violence, just for, the record and just for the people that may be listening that don't have time to like look at a platform, etc. Whenever it comes to addressing gun violence, what do you propose as far as tackling this ongoing epidemic?
Well, first, thank you for sharing your story. I too have had gun violence impact my life 3 times. I
Mm.
lost my best friend to a murder suicide. I lost my grandparents to a murder suicide, and I lost a colleague to a domestic violence incident. And I don't live in a gang banging, drug dealing environment. Whatever you want to think about Memphis, it's just we're awash in guns and not in mental health services. So I have been, I probably started being politically active with Moms Demand Action after the shooting in Newton, Connecticut.
Yeah.
Um, that was heart wrenching to me as a mom. I now have 3 kids. They have been doing active shooter drills since they were 2 when they learned to stand on a toilet. My daughter, when she was 7, got a note sent home that said, "Don't wear your light up shoes because when we do these drills, if there is an active shooter, we turn off the lights and they'll be able to see her running for her life." All 3 of my children have now been at separate times in active shooter situations. So, not
Mm.
drills, but lockdowns because of shooter in their area. I don't think they should live like that.
No.
I just don't think that. I say often that, you said religiously. So it made me think that the other party likes to claim they're the party of faith, but you can't be the party of faith when I pray every day that I send my kids to school, that they come home to me
Yeah.
just because of gun violence. So I've worked a lot in this area. On the city council, we actually passed 3 ballot measures to say, hey, you want to say Memphis is crime ridden? Let us treat the problem. We are bleeding out in the streets. And we propose things like making people store their guns safely in their cars, not walk around the streets with an AR-15. Why do I say that one in particular? Because it actually happened near an elementary school, but he had it legally. And so we're just supposed to make sure, like, I guess he's fine. Um, and closing boyfriend loopholes, etc. So we passed these ballot measures, put them out for a vote. The state threatened to take away all of our tax revenue. By the way, we are the largest generator of tax revenue in the state. And we said, fine, we'll take you to court. We took them to court. We won. They got on the ballot. They passed each one of them by over 80%. That's Republicans and Democrats said these
Mm,
are common sense measures that we should put in place. So I will continue to push for that. But in the meantime, we've got to do on the ground really tangible things. So I started a free gun lock by mail program here after the Uvalde shooting. And we have given out over 2,000 gun locks. By the way, it's $2 for a gun lock, $5 for me to mail it anywhere in Shelby County. And we started doing it that way because I read a study in Johns Hopkins University that said over half of gun owners say they don't store their guns safely. And again, that directly goes back to what's personal about this to me. And they said the number one thing that would change their mind is a conversation with a friend or loved one. So I'll give you a gun lock even if you don't have a gun. I just want you
mm,
to give it to somebody who has a gun and have that conversation with them about storing it safely. We knew at the time because our legislature passed the Guns and Cars bill. For those of you in Kansas who don't know, we said you can have your gun anywhere. You can have it without a permit. And you can leave it in your car loaded. When we did that in Memphis, we became number one in the nation for guns stolen out of cars, and 40% of our violent crime can be traced back to a gun stolen out of a car.
yep.
In the 2 years we've had our gun lock program, we have seen a 25% reduction in guns stolen out of cars and a nearly identical reduction in our violent crime rate. The other really amazing thing is we have also seen a reduction in a number of children who show up at our children's hospital with gunshot wounds. It's been cut in half because, again, guns stored unsafely, kids often get a hold of. So we've got to put in place things like that that are tangible, that are common sense, that people across the aisle can agree to and have conversations while we continue to push for legislation. I proudly wear my F from the NRA. While I also am a gun owner, I carry. Why do I carry? Because I've had multiple death threats while running for governor. I've had to campaign in a bulletproof vest. I was told to get a sidearm and to start practicing. So you can be a gun owner and believe in common sense gun legislation. You can be a gun violence survivor and not be extreme. You can be a mom who's just worried and wants to make sure that if the legislature passed something stupid again, like let's say teachers being armed, I'll veto it because I know the numbers, I know the science, I know the data,
Yeah.
and we won't have more guns around our kids ever.
As if we don't put teachers through enough, am I right?
Right? I know.
My mom was a public school teacher, and she retired in I think 2010, and she's always like, I just can't imagine what teachers are going through right now, and yeah, it's just there's so many things that we could talk about, and you mentioned that Memphis is the biggest in tax revenue, is that correct? Gives
Yep.
the biggest back. So that is interesting because Memphis, and we're still talking about gun violence, but Memphis gets a really bad rap for having, oh, it's so violent, and that gets put on people of color. But like you said, it's a lot of guns that are placed there, correct? Is that part of the problem as well, is what I'm hearing?
Well, yeah. We the you can go at lunch to the Bass Pro Shop and get a gun
Right.
because we have permitless carry now. We have
Permitless
slowly,
carry.
yeah, we have slowly eroded all laws around obtaining a gun. In fact, when I went to go get, I've been have hunting guns since I was like 9 years old. My dad used to teach hunter safety, which used to be like a 6 week course, and you had to like actually hold a gun and clean a gun and shoot a gun. Now you can just go pick one up. You don't even have to do an online testing or anything. And so I asked the guy, I said, while he was running my background check, I said, so how many guns could I buy today? Like, if I come back tomorrow, will you have to run a background check again? He said, yeah. And I said, but if I bought multiple guns today, would it count on this background check? He said, yeah. And I said, how many could I buy before you have to tip somebody off? And he said, about 10.
Oh,
I was like, what?
this is just
I mean, it's
wild.
just crazy. It's just crazy.
No
Memphis does
common
get a bad
sense.
rap, but look, every problem that they want to push on us and say, well, it's a Democrat-run city. Okay, well, guns are a problem. We have asked to be able to do more around common sense gun laws. They have said no, and they are signing permitless carry in a Beretta factory. So ask yourself, why are guns a problem? We continue to have problems with our health outcomes. For example, HIV. We
Mm,
had a lot of people, a rising population. We're like number 2 or 3 in the nation for new incidents. It's especially problematic around our teenage boys, right?
yeah.
Um, they cut off the HIV funding that was coming in from the federal government. So the federal government had to find a workaround to get HIV funding. By the way, I also started a free HIV test by mail program too, because I have a 16-year-old son. And as open as we are, I know that he would not be like, hey, mom, I heard HIV tests are free at the health clinic. Will you take me to go get tested? Um, so I wanted people to be able to order a test online and then get information about you're positive, you're negative, what to do next, right? Because it's kind of
Yeah.
like a COVID swab. And we have already seen, we've already given out like 1,500 of those, and we're seeing a slight reduction in that population in particular, which is great in our new incidents. Um, if you want to talk about our education not being great, again, we're not funding our education. So almost every problem that you can point to in Memphis as being a problem directly goes back to the state legislature. And why are they doing that? Well, we haven't had not only, a majority or a minority, we're in the super minority in the state as Democrats, but we haven't had a governor from Memphis in born and raised in Memphis for over 100 years. And when you're not at the table, you're on the table. I mean,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
but Memphis is a real power. So Shelby County has 500,000 registered voters. They're trying to cull our list right now as inactive and take at least 100,000 of those off the roll. So if you haven't voted in the last 4 elections, please go reactivate your voter registration. But even carved up the way they've done it, they could have dummy mandered themselves if they pissed off enough Memphians, because we are actually the biggest voting base. And that's why they carved us up, not because we are weak, not because we are problematic, but because we are strong. And they
Exactly.
know that. They are worried about it,
Yep.
especially in this economy, especially in this Trump presidency. They know that we could flip the state, but they really may have dummy mandered themselves into seats that could absolutely flip blue. And you can't gerrymander a whole state. So our race in particular is very flippable.
Yeah. And I mean, as we're, let's talk about the gerrymandering that just happened starting on May 7th. And I mean, it's been happening, right? Like the reason Afton Bain didn't win her race is because Nashville's so
Mhm.
gerrymandered, even though she won Nashville by like over 83%. And, it's just been carved up. I wanted to ask you though, like, do you think that this will backfire? Because I read that they based the maps on the 2024 election.
Mm-hmm,
And as we know, there are many people leaving MAGA. You said it yourself, people that
mm-hmm,
you've talked to, and also a lot of people of color who voted for this
mm-hmm.
administration are not happy at all. So, do you think this could backfire on the GOP supermajority for what they just did?
Absolutely. And it's not only people of color, excuse me. We're definitely seeing that with our Hispanic population across the
Yeah.
country.
Yep.
And we're seeing increased turnout by Black voters and others. Women, women are pissed
Yes.
off. Um, but
Yeah.
up
Can't
and
keep
down,
carrying that water for the patriarchy. You're just gonna drown.
please don't.
Yeah.
Um, like farmers, West Tennessee is very agricultural once you
Yes.
get outside of Memphis. And the tariffs, the immigration crackdowns, SNAP benefits being cut. Like every time you turn around, this war in Iran and what it's doing to diesel fuel, it's killing 6th-generation farms. And
Yeah.
so people are really waking up in a way. And look, if their policies were popular, they wouldn't have to redraw the maps. They wouldn't have to rig the game in
Right.
the middle of an election, no less, just a few months out. But they're not, and they know that. So most of these districts are allegedly 20 plus R districts. And most recent Vanderbilt poll, which I think came out today or yesterday, showed Trump had already lost 7 points in Tennessee. That Marsha
Right.
Blackburn was down a couple of points too. Like even like
Ooh.
past the presidency, it's trickling down. Um, and so I just say all that to say, like, it's not as safe as they think. And what we have seen in other places is 20 plus point swings are not that big a deal. Like in Texas, there was a race where it was over 40%, where they were outspent 100 to 1. Same in Arkansas, same in Louisiana, same in Georgia. Again, Florida, in Mar-a-Lago, a Democrat won the
That's
mayor's
right.
race.
That's
You
right.
know, it's just not safe anywhere for them, even with the maps drawn the way they think they are. But I
Yeah.
think I hope really it drives out a lot of Shelby County, a lot of West Tennessee, and I hope that Nashville also feels offended, and all these other places that got looped into these districts, and we actually just take this state back and shock the world.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a dream come true. It would also be a dream come true to see you do a town hall with Marsha Blackburn.
Oh,
Um,
we'd love it. We'd love it. She hasn't had a
come on,
town hall
Marsha.
in over 9 years. We keep
Think
joking.
about that. Over 9 years hasn't talked to her
No,
constituents. That's
mm-mm.
ridiculous. Yeah.
No, she has teletown halls, allegedly. I don't know. They're real,
Yeah, I'm
where
really
she takes questions that are filtered. So I
I'm
don't
really
know.
glad to hear like you say that. It gives me hope because, there's a little, it goes back and forth where, we win some, we lose some, like what happened in like the elections last night. And I was reading the New York Times and they were saying how, oh, well, Trump still has a hold on his party or, his followers and people are showing up and, obviously Thomas Massey and some other,
Mhm.
Republicans got, lost their seat and everything. But that is good to know about the stats on Tennessee, and I really think we could shock the world here. And like you said, they're doing everything in their power to try to make it seem like like they have a complete hold on everything. And
Yeah, they want us to believe that this is impossible. And
yeah,
what I say to my kids and what I say on the campaign trail is hard is not impossible. I've already made over 100 stops in this campaign. I talk to people and take questions at every single stop. And that's the difference. Like showing up in small towns like Washburn, um, going to big cities, blue dots, suburbs, everywhere in between, and talking to people about the issues that impact their lives. Let me tell you, I have yet to have a stop yet. This is the worst superhero power ever, where somebody doesn't end up crying in my arms or crying while I'm
mm,
giving a speech. That's
yeah,
how bad it is out there. People are in tears. And sometimes they're hopeful tears, to hear someone saying what makes sense to them. And sometimes it's just them talking about their experiences and how life is for them in Tennessee right now and wanting something better, something different. And if people are literally being moved to tears when a politician's coming and talking to them, it's bad out there. Like we are not well. We are not well, right?
yeah, it's
And
true.
that's kind of my barometer for what will actually activate people to go outside their comfort zone, because we can no longer like or share on Facebook or retweet. We're going to have to knock doors and make phone calls and do stuff offline. Wear your Jerry Green shirt to the grocery store and talk to the lady who's checking you out. Like, you've got to get out of your comfort zone, because this is, I say all the time, like, I feel like we're always like, this is the most important election of your lifetime. But like, truly, people, this is the most important election of your lifetime. And we're on the front lines of fascism. Like, Kansas should be
Uh,
caring about what happens in Tennessee, because we're implementing Stephen Miller's racist Project
oh
2025
yeah,
faster than anyone.
yeah,
I have National Guard troops in my streets, I have ICE in my neighborhoods. They are
yeah. The
tested
National Guard's
out
still in
here.
Memphis, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know when their rooms are booked through?
Is
November
it
2026.
so they're going to be November? Yeah, November 2026. That's good to know because they're literally threatening to send ICE to the polling places, and you think he's going to do that, don't you?
I put nothing past this man, because
Yeah,
he is grasping at the last straws of power. And I mean, I don't how can you not think that he'll do that when we all watch January 6th?
I know. It's so true. And just what he did with the DOJ and basically we just interviewed Harry Dunn, who's running for in Maryland, and he was one of the Capitol Police officers that was part of January 6th and defending our democracy and our freedom. And he was talking about it's a down payment for his militia. And yeah, you're right. There's nothing that we should ever put past this administration and this person who's at the the helm of it, you know? And I know we're almost, we're running on time, but I wanted to just ask you, there's so many things I feel like we could just go on and on and on. And yes, I mean, love
If I
talking to you.
can,
Yes, Zachary, go ahead.
there's one thing that I really want to get your opinion about, Jerry, and I already know the answer to this, but let's just talk about it anyway.
For our
So,
listeners.
yes. So Donald Trump prides himself that they sent a task force and using the biggest like air quotes and like, bold underline circle whatever, sent this task force to Memphis, okay? And is gloating about the fact that, oh, crime is down and this and that, and we all know that that's absolute, well, bullshit, right? We all know that. We see that. But from your standpoint as city council, can you talk about what you mentioned about like National Guard, you mentioned about like ICE, and what has been like the community response whenever it comes to like these ICE raids and the quote unquote crackdown on crime. it,
So
it
let's
it's kind of
let's
ironic, really quickly. It's kind of ironic that a president that has multiple felonies is talking about cracking down on crime, but also, block the release of the Epstein files that he's
mm.
mentioned over a million freaking times in. It's kind of ironic that you're talking about cracking down on crime whenever you also have multiple bankruptcies and you're in charge of the economy. That's the concerning part to me. But go ahead. Sorry about that.
So let's break this down into three buckets. Okay. The first is the
Mhm,
Memphis Safe Task Force, which
mhm,
involves a more heavy presence of the Tennessee Highway Patrol, DEA, ATF, FBI, in conjunction with our police force. They are out on the streets and doing what their regular job has always been. We mostly just have a lot more Tennessee Highway Patrol people. That's
mhm,
really the truth there.
mhm.
Um, and that's part of the task force that is less problematic because that was what their jobs always were.
Right.
Um, and by the way, just so everyone's clear, before anybody got sent here, we were at a 25-year low for our
Mhm,
crime rate here in Memphis.
mhm,
So we were already trending down. We were already trending down on everything: homicides, violent crimes, robberies, etc. before they got here. The second bucket is the National Guard. The National Guard isn't doing shit. Excuse my French.
I believe it.
They don't make any arrests. Okay, they don't serve any warrants. They helped block streets and direct traffic during the St. Jude Marathon. Thanks for that, I guess. They walk around my Target. They're getting tacos at my favorite taco truck. Like they're not doing anything, and they are just a waste of resources. It cost over $1 million a day, and at the same time, when like Nashville's frozen under, and the troops should have been called there to help clear branches, they're sitting at my Starbucks. Okay,
Right, right.
so they're absolutely pointless. They are different than ICE. So again, I'm now in the third bucket, which is ICE, which is the most problematic um, group to me. ICE is terrorizing my Hispanic community here, which is the largest growing population in Shelby County, by the way.
Yeah.
People are not going to work. Children weren't going to school. Um, People aren't going to their doctor appointments. They're not even going to church. A lot of Catholic churches had to take their communion classes online. So uh, I meet people regularly throughout Tennessee, by the way, not just here at Memphis, that feel frightened and afraid. I have friends here who were born in New York City, but are a little tan skinned and have dark hair, and they carry their passport and papers with them like it's Nazi Germany. I have met white women who are British in places like South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, who carry
Right.
their passports with them and don't go to coffee shops because they're afraid someone will hear their accent. I
Wow.
have had Native Americans who
Mm.
served in the 101st Airborne talk to me in Putnam County say they've been stopped and asked for their papers. And they're like, I'm more American than any other American.
Exactly.
Um, they're terrorizing our whole state, but it is very problematic here. We actually have started an immigrant pantry. I'm always collecting for them when I have campaign stops here in Memphis because they won't wait in food lines anymore. 1 in 5 kids in the state of Tennessee goes to bed hungry every night. So we know kids and seniors. We have the largest senior food insecurity in the nation here in Memphis. The most vulnerable among us are going hungry because they won't wait in a free food bank line because they're afraid they'll be taken up by ICE. They are the most problematic. They are also the least accountable because they are masked, they don't have badges or names, they are armed. We watched what they did in Minneapolis, and there's still been no justice or accountability there for 2 deaths in broad daylight for people who are exercising the First and Second Amendment rights, by the way. Um, they need to be abolished, abandoned, defunded immediately. Are there things we need to do around immigration? Absolutely. Am I worried about child trafficking or drug cartels? Sure. But all of that used to be housed in the DOJ and it needs to go back there.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be a thug squad. So the crime in Memphis is way down. In fact, over the 3 years I've been in council, we've done a lot of investments both in our police and first responders, as well as mental health supports and after school activities and job opportunities for our youth and things like that. And we have seen a 40% decrease in our crime overall. 40% in 3 years.
Wow.
None of that had to do with ICE or the National
Mhm.
Guard being on my streets.
Yeah. I mean, again, another that's just another big example, something that's so enraging and shouldn't be happening in our country, especially when people at this point, have the nerve to call us the land of the free. We're not. And is just another example why we need to get out and vote. Everybody needs to mobilize and make it happen. And we need to get you in office, Jerry. Um, and thank you for sharing that, what's happening in Memphis and, in Tennessee just as a whole, because we don't have to live this way. We really don't.
We don't.
And, everything you've said tonight, like, it just gives me hope that, and also just to connect with people who are like-minded and to hear Tennessee has had enough. Like, we have had enough of this. And I've only lived here 8 years and I've seen the regression in 8 years of Tennessee.
Well,
So,
and like to give you a little bit of hope, I've lived here my whole life.
yeah,
I was here when Al Gore was a Democratic senator. I was here when Ned McWhorter was a Democrat, was our governor. Like, and again, I'm no spring chicken. I'm 48. Um, but it's not like it was 100 years ago.
right.
It was
Yeah.
not that long ago. So Tennessee is not as red as people think. And I'll tell you this, we are getting a lot of people moving in. I meet people from California, Colorado, whatever. And you know what? A California Republican is a Tennessee Democrat. That's what I know.
Yeah, this is true. And,
Mhm.
that would have been, I know we're running out of time here, but, I want to talk about all these companies moving in and, AI and all this stuff. But maybe another day we could have you back on. We'd love to continue this
Definitely.
conversation.
Definitely.
And as we wrap up here, I'd love to ask you, what have been some of the biggest challenges for you running for governor? What have been some of the biggest surprises? And how can we help you and continue to amplify your campaign? Because again, we need to get you in office. You're exactly the kind of candidate we want to be the governor of Tennessee.
I think for me, the biggest challenge is being away from my family. It's really, really hard in ways that I could not have anticipated. I don't think I've seen one of my daughter's soccer games this year. She plays both for her school and on competitive, and somehow I haven't been able to make it to any of them. Um, the same with my older son. And, I barely rushed into town for his 16th birthday, but I haven't been able to give him a lot of driver's lessons like I'd like to.
Yeah.
So things like that I'm missing. My youngest wrote me a really heart wrenching Mother's Day card about how much he misses me. And he's 9. He's autistic. He doesn't fully understand, and
Yeah.
so that part is really challenging. What's really inspiring is similar, which is all the people that I meet that are lifting me up, that are supporting me, that are finding ways big and small to help me out in this journey. And I mean, of course, like people who are donating or volunteering on the campaign, but also people who are saying like, "Can I come over and fold your laundry?" or "Can I
That's
pick your kid
awesome.
up from school?" Like,
Yeah.
the people that are trying to see me behind the scenes and seeing that I'm juggling a lot, people that are supporting me at my day job and at council, um, and just really lifting me up in ways that, you know, some of these people are strangers to me. We have a couple of volunteers that have never been on any campaign, volunteered in any way. And they have shown up, shown out, and, like brought me flowers for Mother's Day. It's just, it's really great. The people of Tennessee have been really great to me, and the way they're trying to carry me forward in this. So I'm truly, truly grateful.
I don't want to speak for you, Gwen. I don't ever want to speak for anybody beside myself. But I think it's pretty safe to say, Jerry, that you absolutely have a positive vote from Gwen. That's for
Oh,
absolute sure. I mean, I think
100%.
I think that's an
This just
absolute
One
locks it
sure.
down.
in.
Yeah.
It is
Like,
locked it in, and I'm sure our listeners too, any Tennesseans
absolutely.
listening. Yeah. Yeah,
And we're
absolutely.
going to amplify this episode probably more than we have in a very long time. Me and Gwen have been working together for close to 2 years, and obviously we haven't interviewed candidates that whole 2 years. This podcast is actually fairly like newer, but we're almost to 7,000 downloads. So I mean that we're
Right.
definitely doing something right, right? But me and Gwen are doing our weekly series. I have a new Justice series we're doing. Like we're just continuously putting out content, but we want to amplify this one because this is a very critical election,
Very.
and this is a very personal election because of this stuff that's going on in Tennessee. Um, Gwen, I gotta remember this is a candidate one. I'm trying to keep it calm. I'm trying to keep it clean, even though some of the other ones I haven't been. But this one I'm trying to be a little more mindful of. But you see, I do have it in me. I can do it. Um,
I'm sure
I'm
I'm a
Jerry doesn't
public
mind.
defender. There's really nothing you could
Yeah.
say that would surprise me.
I think with
I
your
like to tell people that I've spent more time in prison than anyone else running for governor too.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think with, your background. Oh, hello, Poodle. If you're
Mm.
watching this video, if you're watching the video version of this podcast, you will see my pain in the ass poodle. And then if you're listening to the audio, well, just envision a very hairy white poodle on my lap because he's looking at me like, Dad, you're
He wants
recording
to meet Jerry too.
again. Yeah, he's so excited.
Yeah.
We have
Like
we have
even
dog bandanas. You should get him one.
Oh, how cute. I gotta get my
oh
dog one. I will
yes,
get my dog one.
yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, Jerry, you okay, again, I'm sorry, Zachary, you finish your thought first.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll amplify this as much as we can because we
Yeah.
need to get voices like Jerry,
Yeah.
obviously, in office. And if you're in
And
the state of Tennessee
mhm,
and you're listening to this, get your ass out and vote.
yes,
And it is deeply important. Do not sit this one out. They
No.
absolutely.
can try to take away your voice. They could try to take away your vote. We have to show up regardless. And
Exactly.
that is what
Yes.
it is going to take to get people to understand that every single election matters, from the president down to the US Senate, down to governor, down to your local water board. And I've said it numerous times on this podcast. I did not believe that water board was important. I come from an area that did
Ugh,
not have a water board. But then I moved
so
to an
important. We are precious about our water here in Memphis. Speaking of AI with Elon Musk, yes,
Yep.
so important.
Yep. Yep. I
and
know we
I
didn't get to
moved
talk about all that, but yeah. Yeah.
and I moved to an area that has a water board. And I was like, "Oh." And then they tried to privatize public utilities and I was like, "Uh-uh.
No.
That shit's not going to fly
Look, but
here."
I'm going to say
And
this. You can't just vote. I need y'all to do
no.
more than vote. I need
Yes.
you to bring a friend to the polls. I need you to get active before voting takes place. I need you to be out speaking about it now, amplifying it, however, whatever your circle is. We have over 50,000 postcards written that we're going to send to rural voters. We do text banking, we do phone banking, we're going to do door knocking. But whatever it is, if you're one of those people that has like a machine that makes buttons at home and you make green for governor buttons and you pass them out wherever you go, do that. But do something where you're activating voters wherever you go. It gets to be voting day and it's raining and people won't get out in the rain. Start calling them. There's old people that won't make it. Start driving them. Like whatever it is, we've got to do more this year. Like so much more. Every single thing matters.
Absolutely. And again, anything we can do to amplify your campaign. I mean, I'll if you need musical entertainment, I'll be there. I think you're amazing and thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us this evening. And where can people find you and also donate to your campaign?
So you can go to my website to learn more about me, to learn about my AI platform. I have a whole AI platform, but I have a whole platform, as Zachary mentioned. Greenforgovernor.com, green like the color, FOR, the preposition, governor.com. And you can donate there too. You can sign up to volunteer there. You can see our upcoming events. So you can come find us on the road. Our merch shop is there. Also, we keep a running list of op-eds that I had published. I had one published this week about how Shelby County is a sleeping giant. Our podcast, when this goes live, we'll link our podcast up there. So
Awesome.
whatever way you want to find us, you can find us there. I'm also on all the social medias, much to my dismay. Um,
I know,
I
right?
hate it. I hate it. I'm on all the things. If y'all make a new app, I'm not going to get on it. But if you're on an app right now, I'm already there. Please come find me.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Zachary, any last words?
I just want to say, Jerry, thank you for representing Tennesseans, not a corporation, not a pack, but representing the working class, because that is exactly who we need at all levels of government. Jerry, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, y'all, for doing this, for
I
having this
appreciate you.
podcast, and for amplifying candidates. That's really important.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're deeply inspired by you. And yeah, here, here's to our next governor of Tennessee, Jerri Green.
Thanks, y'all. Have a great night.
You
You
too.
too.
Bye.